Erik Prince, welcome back for the third time.
Good to be back. Third time's a charm.
It's good to have you back.
Nice to be.
So you don't really need an introduction, but I'm going to give you a mini one. So founder, CEO of Blackwater, the biggest and most effective private military contracting company in the world. You never lost
A
protectee ever. I think you're the only company to ever do that. And we're bringing you on to talk about, unfortunately, the failed assassination attempt against Donald Trump. Figured nobody's more qualified to talk about it than you, considering the fact your company never lost a protectee. And you're also the co-founder of Unplugged, one of the only phones on the market that big tech cannot track you on. And we'll get to that later. But so yeah, I want to just dive in. I can't tell what's real and what's not real on the news and the media when it comes to the assassination attempt. There's all these conspiracies, both on the right and the left. I don't feel like anybody is using context is part of their decision, at least on the left, on what happened. But before we get into the heavy stuff, I want to ask you about the BW Breitling watch. People are fascinated by that. And so,
Good thing I wore it today.
Yeah.
Some companies give loyalty awards, and I had 150 of these made and given to key people in the company. And it was kind of my promise to them that wherever they are, we'll come for them if they're in trouble. And it's got a 121.5 beacon. This is almost 20 years old, but it broadcasts on 121.5 International Guard frequency. So any commercial aircraft is going to have a radio tuned to this, and it beeps out SOS, so you can locate and rescue whoever needs it. I don't think any of the guys ever used it while they were in the employ of BW, but I did hear of some of the guys use it on a backcountry ski trip in Norway.
No kidding.
It saved their life. Yeah, one of the guys was really hyping out bad and pulled it, and the nearby station missed it, but something 20, 30 miles away picked up the call, and within minutes there was a Norwegian Coast Guard helicopter overhead and saved him. So
man,
it
that's
works.
awesome. I picked one up. I found it on the secondary market. I don't know whose it was, but I'm happy I got it. It's a good keepsake. So
Good piece of history.
very cool. Very cool. But let's just dive right in. So 2 weeks ago now, Trump was almost assassinated, shot in the head, and luckily they just grazed him. But there's just so much going on in the media right now. I talked to a handful of people. I talked to Eli Crane, who's, Congressman Crane. He was out at the site the other
Frogman and
day.
Sniper as well.
Yep. And
Good.
so I wanted to get his take because he actually went to the site, and he had a great quote. He started it off with, "This is either the greatest security breach of all time, or they tried to assassinate him."
Or they left the door open so wide that any infiltrator could come in. Yeah, he's right. It's one of those two things. The level, right? The fact that they allowed that the Secret Service was bested by a 20-year-old to literally draw blood from the Republican candidate for president and former president is inconceivably incompetent. Mm-hmm. And I think the testimony of Cheadle, the director that just resigned, in shame. It's shocking that it had to have incompetence that bad to finally get bipartisanship, that both Dems and Republicans in Congress were calling for a resignation. But I think that is a tip of the iceberg of the amount of rot throughout our federal institutions, whether it's in law enforcement, in the intelligence agencies, in the military, et cetera. That level of incompetence and arrogance has permeated the place because we've allowed failure to continue to rise to the top and never, ever suffer consequences for it. Nobody's really getting fired. I think they were going to defund. Their appropriation was coming up for the Secret Service, and they were actually going to zero out her compensation. So both sides were actually coming for her. But for heaven's sakes, it's really bad. A 12-year-old, I think I first took my kids deer hunting, my sons, at probably age 12, and they would have easily hit a 140-yard lay down, a prone shot with an M4.
Not a hard shot to make.
Not at all.
Not a hard shot to make. I mean, do you think this is a DEI? This is the result of DEI within the government?
It's a result of a culture of no accountability for failure. And that allows people to drift so far off the mission. If the mission is to be zero failure, protect the protectee, or whatever the mission is of a federal agency, it allows them to distract into green initiatives, DEI initiatives, all kinds of other things that truly distract from what the actual mission of what they're supposed to be doing is. Yeah, DEI is a factor, but it's really a culture of political correctness and no merit. That's what's exceedingly dangerous, and we become every bit as rotted as the Soviet society was before the Soviet Union collapsed. Especially when now when this actually needs really full proctological examination, that we really can't trust the FBI. That's really sad. That's disgusting. I even feel bad for there's some great Secret Service agents, and obviously there's some ones that don't belong there. Feel terrible for the ones that really earned it, that want to be excellent, that are excellent. But even the people on the president's detail that day, I think only one was full-time Secret Service. As far as I know, the other ones were just HSI agents, random Homeland Security law enforcement people that were assigned from the Pittsburgh office or whatever. There was only 4 post-standers, Secret Service, assigned. Jill Biden had 12 post-standers assigned to an event she had the same afternoon in Pittsburgh. So Jill Biden, who has no constitutional authority or role, not a candidate for president, took 3 times as much as Trump did at an outside venue. Hers was a small inside venue. So there's just cascading effects of bad decisions.
I mean, there seems to be 3 or 4 different narratives. There's the left's conspiracy that it was planned from inside the Trump team, which I don't know how you could think that. I think that
there's not a sniper in the world that I would trust, and I've known some great ones that I would trust to take a shot at me and to clip my ear.
Yeah.
No.
Me neither.
0. 0.0.
It's a 1 in a million, probably more than that shot. To be able to hit a target that size while you're moving around,
that's pure madness.
Yeah.
But what's even worse than that is how many Dems would even post and talk about how much they wish the marksman had better aim.
Mm-hmm.
If that's really what they're feeling, then how do you cooperate in a republic with people that actually want you dead?
It's a great question. The other is, there's a couple of different ones. The other is, people think it was the government involved. People think that it was DEI. It was a DEI coming to fruition here and kind of showing the end result. And then the other is that, there's the incompetence one, and there's the one where we just let it happen.
I'll give you 2 examples previously of interactions I've had with other protective organizations. In 2008, Blackwater days, we had, remember the shoe throwing incident in Baghdad?
Mm-hmm.
When the reporter got up and threw his shoe at George Bush in a press conference. There was a Blackwater guy in the room because the deputy chief of mission was there, saw that the first shoe went, drew his pistol, had a sight picture, saw that it was only a shoe, reholstered, went forward, took the guy down, tackled him before the Secret Service did anything. It's like the Secret Service was almost like confirmation bias. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. Holy shit, something's happening. I can't believe it's happening. I'm not moving. It was stunned. For all the noise, righteous indignation people have made about Benghazi or about Blackwater being heavy-handed in our diplomatic security missions. 100,000 missions, less than 0.5% were weapons discharges. In the Benghazi attack, where a U.S. ambassador was killed on duty, how many rounds were fired by the DS agents? Not by the contractors, by government employee, diplomatic security service agents. How many rounds were fired by them?
I don't know for a fact, but I would guess 0.
0. How can you have that? How can you, is that incompetence? Is that malpractice? I don't know, but my God, I can't imagine 8 BW guys that would have not have got some rounds off and moved to counterattack. So again, maybe our federal agencies just aren't as good as we think they are, or maybe our assumptions about what their capabilities aren't as good. The dangerous thing, which must be fixed, is if the Secret Service was bested by a 20-year-old who went to the range sometime, practiced. Obviously, he mapped it out. Supposedly, he had a drone that they've acknowledged, that he used a rangefinder. That they bested him, and he got, 5 aimed shots off. What are they going to do against a 10-man Hezbollah team?
It's a great question.
Running drones or whatever. That is a level of threat clearly they're not up for right now. So things need to be fixed. My thinking is, was there government involvement? I'm not sure. Heritage Foundation did a good job of tracking ad IDs on existing phones to find that there was a phone that visited his house regularly that went to some office building in Washington, D.C. That's interesting. That's curious. We should definitely find who that handset owner was. I'm not convinced if it was a conspiracy to kill Trump that they would have used a 20-year-old local kid. Is it DEI? I would say it's a greater lack of focus on merit and being solely focused on doing the mission and just allowing all the politics and political correctness of Washington to completely distract from an idea. Because I've seen that. We've seen that in the conduct of the war in Iraq, in the conduct of the war in Afghanistan, in the conduct of countering the Houthis, right? So you have the Houthis that have now shut off one of the world's major waterways. The first thing I learned on the day one of the U.S. Navy, the mission of the U.S. Navy is power projection, sea control, and to control the key choke points of the world. Well, right now, choke point is controlled by the Houthis. Enabled by Iran, the U.S. Navy said, well, we fired $1 billion worth of missiles at countering the Houthis. That's not even a real number. It's probably 5 or 6 billion because they're counting $1 billion worth of missiles from what they bought it for 20, 25 years ago. They're going to pay $6 billion to restock. And again, the Houthis, large and in charge, having shut that off. The U.S. military is sent to Gaza to build a pier for logistics. And they can't keep the pier afloat and functioning for more than a couple of days, and it costs $230 million. It's just failure after failure of throwing fire hosing money at an incompetent, unaligned bureaucracy. And sadly, a guy lost his life on last Saturday because of that. And, the scariest thing is wars start because of assassinations. World War I started when Archduke Francis Ferdinand, the heir to the throne of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, was assassinated on a botched hit in Belgrade in 1914. They tried blowing up his car that morning. They missed. He was actually visiting in the hospital his wounded guys, leaving out of there, and the assassin saw his car going down the street without guards, stepped out with a pistol and shot him. That started World War I, which killed millions of people, rewrote the map of Europe. Imagine America today if they had assassinated Donald Trump. Would we be in a civil war? Maybe, maybe not. Would there be high likelihood of violence? Yes.
Well, he still has several months to the election, and even if he wins, then we have 4 years of, so we may be heading down that road anywhere, and that's anyways, and that's kind of how I'd like to get. We'll get to that later in the interview. But what is, like I said, I can't tell what's real and what's not real anymore on the media, on what I'm being fed. I see all these things. Supposedly they went to the shooter's house and it was completely clean. This is all unconfirmed hearsay right now is what I've been able to find. But from what I've been told, there wasn't any dirty dishes. There was no silverware. There was no trash. It was almost like a medical operating table. It was that clean. Have you heard this?
I've not heard that.
I mean, what are your thoughts? What was this? You've got only a few months until the 2024 election takes place, and who knows where the country's going to be. What will the national debt be? How many more political tricks will there be? That's why I've teamed up with a top-rated precious metals company, Goldco, to diversify and help protect my savings with gold and silver before it's too late. We live in unprecedented times, and for me, that calls for action. Goldco made sure I had all the information I needed to make the best decision for myself and for my family. They've helped people like you and me place over $2.5 billion into gold and silver. Right now, they're offering up to 10% instant match and bonus silver if you qualify while supplies last. So go to ShawnLikesGold.com or call 855-936-GOLD and see if you qualify to get your bonus silver today. You'll also get a complimentary wealth protection kit to learn more about what precious metals can do for you. That's 855-936-GOLD or visit ShawnLikesGold.com. Performance may vary. Consult with your tax attorney or financial professional before making an investment decision. Support for today's episode comes from Hexclad. Revolutionize your cooking experience with Hexclad cookware, where precision meets style. From the renowned non-stick cookware to the precision-engraved knives, every piece embodies a perfect blend of innovation and timeless quality. Hexclad cookware is designed to enhance your culinary experience through cutting-edge design and unparalleled performance for the discerning chef. Hexclad's meticulously crafted knives embody Japanese Damascus steel tradition with an impressive Rockwell rating and promise that they start sharp and stay sharp. Hexclad knives are favored among chefs for their performance across the board. And don't forget, Hexclad products have a lifetime warranty. Whether you're grilling in the backyard or hosting a dinner party, Hexclad has you covered with unbeatable performance and style. For a limited time only, our listeners get 10% off their orders with our exclusive link. Just head to hexclad.com/SRS. Support the show. Check them out. Once again, hexclad.com/SRS. Ready to elevate your culinary game? Shop now and experience the superior craftsmanship of Hexclad knives and cookware.
I think that Congress needs to use its subpoena power to subpoena every officer that was anywhere involved in that setting, interview them publicly. Let a live feed of that interview be simulcast. It's only the massive disinfectant effect of transparency that will actually answer these questions.
Do you actually think we'll get that? But we just saw the Secret Service director get grilled by Congress. She didn't answer anything.
She didn't answer anything.
You've been in Congress several times.
She ducked behind the FBI is investigating. The FBI is investigating. Who is investigating at the FBI? Who is that? Where has there been any information? They should be having a daily presser updating what this is. Was this a conspiracy higher up or not?
Do you think we'll ever get that?
Well, the Warren Commission, after the assassination of Kennedy, was so screwed up they had to have a second one. And clearly the results of that, my issue there is 1992, Congress passed a law stating that within 25 years, all documents related to the Kennedy assassination must be released. So that 25 years expired in 2017 when Mike Pompeo was the director of CIA, and he stopped the release of those documents. I find that unacceptable. I don't care if it says that his wife did it or whatever government entity. Again, we need, if we're going to have a republic and we're going to have any kind of confidence in our government institutions, let truth be released. enough.
It doesn't sound like you want to say what you really think, but I think
Is it a conspiracy? I don't know. Well, put it this way: if it was a conspiracy, it's not how I would do it. So maybe I'm confirmation biasing myself out of it that way.
well, you're a competent guy. These people aren't. I mean, just with all the context, behind it. I mean, they definitely. It seems to me they used an escalation of force. We saw the rioting happen before he even got elected. Then he got elected, rioting all over the streets.
Yeah,
Antifa,
Tucker called it. What's the next thing?
Yeah.
They're going to try to hurt him. Both Tucker and Bannon, they called it.
So, I mean, how could you not use that context? And it was an escalation of force.
Yes.
How do people not see that?
And we're lucky that he aimed at his head, because I don't think Trump was wearing plates that day, and it was probably an M4. Do you agree? Probably a 5.56 bullet. So again, wearing plates, center mass, on a 78-year-old man, probably would have killed him. And whether he hit here or here or here doesn't really matter. It would have put him down. Mm-hmm. So the assassination, he was going for the glory shot, and thank God he missed.
I mean, on top of that, I've been on several events where Secret Service was involved, and we did one in Istanbul back in 2004 with the NATO convention, and I've seen. I mean, they appeared very competent back then. Every rooftop was covered, every window was covered. I was a part of the sniper overwatch. I don't. When I saw that happen, I don't. And then and that was downtown Istanbul, Turkey, or downtown DC, or downtown Baghdad. Yep. This was a farm field.
Yes.
How can it be that incompetent?
Because he was not anywhere near protected at the level of even what the First Lady was. Because the Secret Service ups their protection level once a candidate is the nominee of the party. And so this was like the last week before that happened. Like I said before, Jill Biden had 3 times as many Secret Service agents on her as Trump did that day. And he's in an outdoor venue. They viewed a 140-yard rooftop as being outside their perimeter. Completely irrational and crazy.
So are you involved in this now? Have they contacted you?
There's certainly been a lot of chatter about that. I've had some private conversations offering what it would look like. And my professional opinion is trying to integrate private contractors in with Secret Service agents will be exceedingly difficult, and the private guys will always get shafted. Because if anything happens, if they shoot somebody or if they don't shoot somebody, it will always be the private guy's fault. That being said, there's still guys that will stand the post because they love Trump and want to protect him. But I think the best use, if you're going to add a different look to this, is to put 5 really good sniper / soft type guys on your advanced team. Because the danger of law enforcement, and I've even seen this in company security officers. Company security officers that come from a law enforcement background tend to be looking rearwards, looking for evidence to collect. Soft guys tend to hunt like a predator. I'm going to look at that target every which way to see how I'm going to kill it. And I think you need to look at this from a predator's perspective, including upping the game with the knowledge that's come out of the Ukraine war of applying drone technology. Because now, before you'd have a perimeter of 1,000 yards, right, for a counter sniper. Mm-hmm. And now you can have a guy with a drone that can deliver a payload from 10 or 15 kilometers away. And he can control that phone with 4 or 5G. It doesn't have to be radio controlled. So there's a lot of danger and a lot of payloads. There's not one drone. There can be 20 drones. Or they can have an algorithm on there that they'll swarm to converge on one location. That's a tough thing for them to protect. So again, if you really want to up the game, then put some proper hunters on it.
Does he, I mean, Does he have to use Secret Service from this point forward?
I don't know. I don't even know what that would look like. Oh, well, the Pinkertons, Alan Pinkerton, of the Pinkerton Detective Agency, detected an original, I think it was called the Gunpowder Plot, to assassinate Lincoln in like 1862. And so they took on a lot of that security and counterintelligence role during the Civil War. But then the Secret Service was formed supposedly as a side job to protect presidents. Because the biggest problem after the Civil War was counterfeiting, counterfeiting of all this money. So that was the main job of the Secret Service of the Treasury. And they were assigned the executive protection role right before or right after Lincoln was assassinated.
What would you do if you were Trump?
Make sure I would put some additional advanced people on, whether they're consultants or get some detailees over from Black Squadron or G Squadron to just do additional advance work, to present a list of options to say, these are the 10 ways that I would kill Donald Trump right now. Mm-hmm. And make sure those 10 or those 20 are blocked, right? And make sure all those security measures are taken. Make sure the team that's assigned to him now is the A team. It's not a bunch of rehashed HSI agents. And that makes me think, what the hell is HSI? Where did an entire other federal investigative agency come from out of Department of Homeland Security? I thought DHS was supposed to be a parent organization for all the different component parts, but now they have their own investigative proctology function as well. It's alarming.
Yes, it is. I don't know how you could. I don't know how you could trust any government organization at this point to protect you if you were Trump.
Well,
or anybody else.
Even some of the statements made by some of the Secret Service agents during the 2016 to 20 presidency. I'm not going to take a bullet for Donald Trump. Okay, fine, then you don't need to work here anymore. Again, the politicization of everything makes our country look more like the Soviet Union did, not the republic that we're supposed to have.
Yeah.
So it only changes by bringing accountability and professionalism back to the ranks. And if that means making them a lot smaller, significantly smaller, fine. But at least build back with something that you can actually rely on.
What are the other ways that you would be concerned they would try to kill him?
Look, he's a very public, outgoing, gregarious guy. He loves to do the grip and, the meet and greets in the ice cream shop or the bakery or whatever. That's an exposure. That's dangerous. And it only takes one person that looks like they're a Trump supporter to not be, to clack themselves off or to stab or whatever. So it's a dangerous time.
I wouldn't even want to take a bite of food if I was him at this point.
Well, can't be paranoid.
Can't be. They just shot him in the head. What do you think about Biden stepping down right after this? And we haven't seen him in is it 7 days now?
It was definitely the cascading effects of a really, really bad debate. I mean, what a disaster. And for them trying to medicate and manage the medications, or when he's up and when he's down, and he's only available from 9 o'clock till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So make sure the enemies don't attack us after working hours. I think for all the talk about democracy, the Democrat Party is not all about democracy, because he was chosen in the primary that they had, and now they've kind of pushed him out in a almost palace coup. Even his announcement, and when Johnson announced that he was not running for the '68 election, he spoke from the Oval Office with a somber speech about why he wasn't doing it. Supposedly Biden was down with COVID and all the rest, and then it's released on a personal letterhead. If you look at the signature, it didn't look like any of the previous 10 executive order signatures that Joe Biden signed very publicly under camera. So I don't know. It looks a little funny.
It does. It does look funny. Do you think that this was a planned distraction to get the assassination attempt out of the media?
No. I'd say I think the Democrat Party bosses, the Obama wing, realized that the support and the response of Trump after it. Look, you got to say, Trump's response after they just shot his ear was amazing. Was brave, and he responded with, fight, fight, fight. Good on him. Bad on the protective detail for not getting him the hell off the X, because obviously he's up and exposed. So if there was a second or third shooter, they would have shot. So again, no other shooting once the 20-year-old was down. But I think the sympathy and the momentum he built off of that, and I think the Dem leaders realized that Biden was just not going to make it as a candidate. So push him out. And push him out now so they supposedly have a convention, and they, trying to push Kamala Harris through. It's interesting that Obama has not endorsed Harris or that wing. And even BLM made a very strong statement against anointing her as the supposed nominee.
What do you think that is?
Maybe Obama's thinking about somebody else. I don't know.
Why does everybody give Obama this much power? Why is everybody saying this is what Obama wants?
What every other president, when they leave office, leaves Washington. Rearview mirror, pack it off, go write their memoirs, enjoy their grandkids. Barack Obama bought a house in Georgetown. Still running, still staffing, still definitely having a policy role. Both organizing the opposition to Trump and certainly organizing significant input to the Biden administration. Well, that's not conspiracy. That's just known.
Oh yeah, he's also striking fear in the heart of America. Did you see that movie they released or produced? The what was it called?
The one on Civil War?
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
The Outage of Communications.
Yeah.
Produced by Barack and Michelle Obama. Basically, China invades. A lot of messaging going on is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Look, the idea of a foreign power invading America is tough. Tough for them to think about. It's like you have 1.2 guns for every person in America. The ability to control American society would be quite difficult.
I agree with you, and I also disagree. I think that we're getting hit from a lot of different angles that don't constitute the typical invasion that we're thinking about. We got the fentanyl crisis happening from the cartels. China's behind. Just yesterday, spent the whole day with Williamson County Sheriff's Department, and they were saying that the number one crime here right now is the Chinese are coming in and basically creating these scams with cryptocurrency. And so they'll come and to somebody and say, hey, give us $10,000, we'll double it within 2 weeks. Then they actually double it. So you get, 20, 30 grand back. And they're doing this to well-to-do, affluent, wealthy figures in society. The next investment's $500,000. It's $1 million. It's $2 million. And they just picked a guy up that had scammed, I think they said $12.4 million out of somebody. All this money is going directly back to China. And if it's happening in this county, then it's probably happening in just about every county.
Sure.
And so they're trying to deplete us of our own currency.
That's just cyber criminality run amok. When you have 1.4 billion people and you have a criminal class. Look, the fentanyl deaths last year the headline number is 109,000 bad. I think the real number is 3 to 4 times that. So if you think about We lost 400,000 KIA in World War II. So we're losing that much every year to fentanyl, organized, propagated, facilitated by the Chinese Communist Party. In the last Mexican election, there was 27 candidates that were assassinated by the cartels, funded by, or funded and organized by the CCP to promote the most left-wing side of politics in Mexico. So China is definitely running multiple covert action programs against the United States to destroy the society from the inside. They allow lots of cyber scams, all the rest. That's a great example of, buyer must beware. And it's also a good example, if you think about how the American West was settled, and I hate to sound like the constant spokesman for the private sector, but it's just fact. The American West, in the post-Civil War Wild West, it was not settled by the U.S. Army or even by the U.S. Marshals. Most of the law enforcement was done by private organizations, by the Pinkertons and those kind of things, because you had the Pony Express, which was the way people communicated, sent mail or packages. You had the railroads, you had banks. They were just getting robbed by large gangs. And it was not... the government lacked the resources and the focus, really, to run those gangs down and to extinguish them. And you even see that in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, that old Robert Redford movie. They would rob and pillage, go everywhere, and the sheriff would always stop at the county line, and the marshal would stop at this line, the army would stop at this border. But there was other guys that just chased them and chased them and chased them. They kept looking back. Who are those guys? It was the Pinkertons. So at that point, the Pinkerton Detective Agency had like 6 times the amount of armed agents that the Army did.
Really?
So again, nature hates a vacuum. Something's going to fill it. For all the talk of defund the police and we don't need police, then you're going to have cities like South Africa where you have housing neighborhoods that are surrounded by high voltage electrified fences with access gates that look like you're entering an embassy, with highly gunned up armed private response, because there's no police that will come. People will self-organize.
You think so?
It's historic.
What do you think we should be doing right now? We have a government that is not functioning. Our border's wide open.
This is
We're
solved.
sending $80 million a week to the Taliban, $80 million a week to a terrorist organization that we fought for 20 plus years. Secret Service isn't functioning. FBI is completely distraught.
Yep.
Our spending is out of control. We have a president we haven't seen in a week who says he's unfit to run for a second term, but he's fit to finish this term.
Yeah, good question. Yikes. I drove out here. I drove across Virginia and Tennessee. And it reminded me of how great these states are and how big they are and how little they need the federal government. And I think the founding fathers were brilliant in that, pass the Constitution, but they wouldn't pass the Constitution without the Bill of Rights. And the 10th Amendment is very specific. It says any power not specifically delegated to the federal government remains the sole purview of the states. And I think we're well past due time for states to flex up and to tell the federal government no on a lot of things. And if you're a border state and the federal government is clearly not enforcing border security, mount up your National Guard, mount up a militia, whatever it is, capture, deport, do what's necessary to protect your citizens and tell Washington to go F right off. And I think there's plenty of states that would join with them in doing that. I think COVID showed that how important local government is, right? Send your mayor or your county commissioner on whether you can go to the shopping mall or go to church or whatever. Again, not an argument we ever should have even had, but you can see the default fascist in people that want to control. And good governance should happen locally, and state government is also much more accountable. And I think one of the real problems with the federal government, particularly with the Senate, happened when back in the progressive era in the 19-teens, like 110 years ago, when they passed an amendment which took away, it used to be that the state legislatures would elect the senators, U.S. senators. But then they changed it to be direct election. So now you're voting from Tennessee to send your senator on. The problem with that is it allows money from not Tennessee, but from everywhere to flood into Tennessee's election to affect how that senator is elected, instead of that senator that goes to represent Tennessee be beholden to Tennessee's interests and the state legislature who elected him telling him what to do. It was a brilliant move by the Founding Fathers, terrible move by the progressives, the super leftists in the Woodrow Wilson era, to change that. And it allowed greater concentration of federal power. Again, when they passed that, when they passed the income tax, because before that, it used to be that the federal government was run solely off of tariffs. Protect every imported good would get nicked with a 15% tariff, gives a certain amount of protection to domestic industry, but not unreasonable. And that was it. And it capped the size of government because you're never going to grow that tax base that much more. So you've had a massive concentration of federal power, civil service protections. So you have a bureaucracy that's been growing steadily. At the same time, a fiat currency that Congress can just print an unlimited amount of. Budget deficit, an extra $1 trillion. So what? We spend an extra $1 trillion. That's their mentality, which has allowed the worst aspects of federal bureaucracy and idiocy to now be funded with really unlimited money. You see that in the wars that have been funded, 20-year war in Afghanistan, total fail, because there was never a guns or butter decision that politician had to make. Are we going to fund healthcare or roads, or are we going to fund a failed war in Afghanistan? No one had to make that adult decision. So again, this gets solved by the power of the purse in demanding that our elected legislators spend less money. You're sick of government? You want less government? Don't fund it. Trust me, the bureaucrats will not show up for free. You're sick of a lack of focus in the security agencies? Cut their budget 30, 40%. You'll get their attention, and you'll get rid of a lot of bad eggs. The amount of fraud, and so we're seeing incompetence, even evil, in these institutions. Imagine how much fraud there is in all the healthcare transfer payments, in Social Security, in Medicare, in Medicaid. Those are still some of our most expensive things that we spend money on every year. It's what's bankrupting us as a country. And it's just blowing out everywhere. You can't even imagine the amount of corruption there.
Do you think we're seeing certain states start to align?
I think you're seeing some states that have people a bit more aware of just how bad it is. But if you think the state of Virginia, if it was a standalone state, would have a GDP the size or larger than Austria. Texas, it's going to be one of the 4th or 5th largest economies in the world. I think Florida's right up there too. California, huge. If the federal government suddenly in America got really, really much smaller, that's not the worst thing.
Well, I don't think they have any plans on reforming. So, I feel like we're starting to see, we had a good conversation about this on your first interview. And I feel like we're starting to see certain states align. And, for example, the Texas border. I know Tennessee sent National Guard down there. I know a couple other states did. I can't remember exactly which ones. But I think you're also seeing states start to pass.
Abbott was slow. Abbott was slow in taking action in Texas. It's too bad. He should have flexed up and told the feds to pound sand a lot earlier.
I don't disagree with you.
And since we're in Tennessee, Andrew Jackson, right? He sent forces and he literally made the victory. He made it possible for America to own the mouth of the Mississippi River. You think about the War of 1812. The last battle was fought, I think, in 1815, the Battle of New Orleans, led by Wild Man Jackson, and he won and drove the British out of North America that way. So there's plenty of precedent of states sending like-minded capability to help each other out and to accomplish a desired common goal. I would argue that securing the border can and should be done across the entirety of the border. I think one of the key missions, if Trump is elected, is how do you locate and deport the tens of millions of people that entered here legally that don't necessarily subscribe to the republic that we've elected, that we've served, that we voted on. We're going to just import 10 or 20% of the population for actual demographic shift. What you see in the Democratic Party is they're trying to register them as voters. Mm-hmm. That's just not their. How can you be a counterparty to someone that continually breaks any kind of commonly mutually understood rules?
There doesn't appear to be any rules anymore, to me.
If you have no rule of law, then it becomes rule of force. And that's an entirely different equation. And that's a horrible road to go down. So I really hope people fully evaluate the choices they're making.
Well, I hope so too, but it seems to be getting worse and worse and worse. And I am really trying to find some hope here. The only hope I've seen are these few states that seem to be aligning. I know Louisiana's in there too, with send a National Guard. I think that we're seeing states start to pass very right legislation, very unforgiving abortion laws. I think it was 26 out of 28 Republican states now have open carry. I believe that's the number. And everybody seems to be falling into line here.
Yeah, and it will make it. I did the same thing. I'm a Wyoming resident, and I bought a billboard during COVID because there was a lot of people moving there from California, and I bought the billboard, and it said, "Don't California our Cody."
Did they do it? Did they California?
Not yet.
Well, that's good.
Part of it, well, around Jackson, yes, but most of Wyoming is very normal. Wyoming still is what America was.
That's nice to hear. The state's starting to change with all of them coming here. But do you think these governors are having conversations behind closed doors about what's happening?
I don't know. I don't have a lot of interaction with governors, but I certainly hope they take their roles very seriously. And if you think about how much influence local and state governments have over our day-to-day lives is much more than the federal government. The whole reason this is out of balance is because the federal government has just gotten way too big, and all of that needs to be put on a diet. And that will require, because unfortunately it's not just up to the power of a few individuals anymore or voters. You need states as with the infrastructure, logistics, and economic power they can muster to, again, tell the federal government to go on a diet.
When people say they tried to kill them, they are after us, who do you think everybody's referring to? Is it the left? Is it the deep state? Is it one and the same? What is it? Who is they?
The most popular political party, the most successful political party of the 20th century was the Socialist Workers' Party convention of 1924. And they laid out in their party platform all the things that have actually been enacted by the Democratic Party. Right, cradle-to-grave welfare, marginal income tax, inheritance taxes, the full spectrum of government programs everywhere. And so there's a lot of people that still believe in the lies of Marxism, Leninism, of communism, of a collectivism. And there are some people that default to thinking like a collectivist, and they think, well, we can actually achieve power and we can achieve paradise if only we're in charge and we're allowed to make all these decisions. And so that's who they are. It's people that are the natural collectivists, controlling people that want to control pretty much any aspect of your life. So what the Chinese Communist Party does, they have a very different paradigm. We believe in individual liberty. They believe in unity and control by the party. What you're seeing the Democratic Party do in removing Biden from the candidacy, and now what charade they're going to pull for a convention and a hurry up reselection of a candidate, and now with their toadies and cronies in the media promoting either Kamala Harris or whoever they end up putting on the ticket, there is a collectivist elite that focus on that, and it's probably, good journalism would be exposing that, and again, bright disinfectant lights of truth on who those shot callers are is important.
I just want to rewind real quick back to I don't know any other way to say it. People are concerned. They're fucking tired of what's going on. I see it in the comments all the time. When are we going to do something? When are we going to do something? And it's been going on for 8+ years now.
Easy to type.
Very easy to type. Hard to
do.
Yeah. What do you?
It causes. Look. Think about what that means. That's enormous. And it's not about taking up arms and doing something. It's about showing up at the school board meeting and calling bullshit on the person that's pushing tranny stuff to your kids or whatever other nonsense. Right? It's showing up. It's turning off the football game and showing up to these local governance things or canvassing your local elections and getting your own friends, siblings, cousins, kids to turn out and vote, making sure they're educated on the issues. It's not about, jocking up, going to war. It's about this has got to be solved at the ballot box. It's still possible to solve with the ballot box, so it doesn't have to be solved with the cartridge box.
Is it still possible to be solved at the ballot box?
Yes. Sure.
How many illegals just entered this country?
A lot.
How many of them are going to vote?
Fair question. There's some good lawsuits being filed right now to a number of those elections boards in those states, forcing them to delineate, forcing them to take action so that you get a judge decision before the election, because judges after the election are not going to throw out elections. They're just too scared. But there's a lot of parts of the country that you can still run honest elections and still contest. Even in California, Steve Garvey has a reasonable shot of beating Adam Schiff for the Senate. Be a great sign.
It would be. Do you think that they are allowing these illegals to flood in so they can keep the electoral votes?
Sure.
With the outflux.
Look, that is a combination of big business, which wants cheap labor. Because look, I run a manufacturing business in America. It is hard to get people to show up and want to work in a factory because you have the economy rolling. You have massive still amounts of federal transfer programs for welfare. And so if you're competing with somebody staying on the couch and watching TV versus showing up at a factory, and they might get paid the same as if they stay home, they're going to choose to stay home. So again, but big business needs labor and they want to drive their labor costs down. Come on. So they abuse The H-1B visa programs, they abuse a lot of that because they pay their lobbyists who pay politicians to keep those visa programs going. And the Dems have a very concerted effort to open the border. They touted it. Biden and Kamala Harris, who is supposed to be the border czar, made all kinds of points of how they undid all the Trump border policies. And now you have, 15, 20 million people rolling in? Yeah, that's a combination of demographic replacement and cheap labor for big business.
20 million illegals, that's 25% of Biden's vote last election. 81 million votes.
If he actually got 81 million votes.
If he actually got them. Now it's 101 million. If they vote them all, which I'm sure they'll try to. It doesn't seem to me like there's anything that's off the table at this point.
I read a lot of history, and it actually has been worse. So we're not there yet.
Do we have to go worse before we see better?
I sure hope not.
What does worse look like?
Unbelievable tribal slaughter. I don't think the last Civil War was largely over. Yes, slavery was a factor, but industrial control of the South by the North and tariffs and all those things played a huge factor. The fact is, of the people that fought for the South, very, very few, I think less than 5%, actually owned slaves. So they were fighting to defend the way they wanted to govern themselves, or the way they wanted to trade with Europe, or an agrarian-based economy. So I'm not here to relitigate the entire Civil War, but today it is that political divide is largely rural versus urban, which would play out very differently. Mm-hmm. It's not regional. It's not North versus South. It's county and rural areas versus cities, and that can be ugly.
How close are we to that?
Well, if Trump was assassinated and the gap and the chaos that would have ensued, who knows what would have happened, and who knows what the federal overreach would have been. And there's a lot of people that don't have a lot of confidence in the federal institutions anymore, and it doesn't take much.
Do you have confidence in any federal institution that exists?
I have a lot of confidence in the men from the kind of units that we came from. I don't have supreme confidence in all the officers, but I have a lot of confidence in, let's say, 04, 05 and below. Because they're the right kind of people. I recently attended a Special Forces Q course graduation, and it was so heartening. It was 220 studs. They knew exactly which bathroom to use. They were there to serve their country, and it was great.
I'm glad they know what bathroom to use. That's great to hear. I can't even believe we're talking about that right now.
I say that tongue in cheek.
Yeah. But Erik, let's take a quick break. Reports say 60% of U.S. pork production comes from one company owned by the Chinese, and their hogs are giving something called ractopamine, which is banned in 160 countries, to include China. Yet you find it in your grocery store aisle every day. There's a better way. I'd like to tell you about Moink. Moink delivers grass-fed and grass-finished beef, lamb, pastured pork, chicken, and sustainable wild-caught Alaskan salmon straight to your door. Moink farmers farm like our grandparents did, and as a result, Moink meat tastes like it should, because the family farm just does it better. The Moink difference is a difference you can taste, and you can feel good knowing you're helping family farms stay financially independent too. You choose the meat delivered in every box, like ribeyes to chicken breasts to pork chops to salmon fillets and much more. Plus, you can cancel at any time. Plus, They guarantee you'll say oink oink, and I'm just so happy I got moinked. So keep American farming going by signing up at moinkbox.com/Shawn right now, and listeners of this show get free bacon for a year. That's 1 year of the best bacon you will ever taste, but it's only for a limited time. Spelled MOINK box.com/Shawn. That's moinkbox.com/Shawn. I want to tell you about this business venture I've been on for about the past 7-8 months, and it's finally come to fruition. I've been hell-bent on finding the cleanest functional mushroom supplement on the planet, and that all kind of stemmed from this psychedelic treatment I did. Came out of it, got a ton of benefits, haven't had a drop of alcohol in almost 2 years. I'm more in the moment with my family. And that led me down researching the benefits of just everyday functional mushrooms. And I started taking some supplements. I found some coffee replacements. I even repped a brand. And, you know, it got to the point where I just wanted the finest ingredients available, no matter where they come from. And it got to this point where I was just going to start my own brand. And so we started going to trade shows and looking for the finest ingredients, and in doing that, I ran into this guy, maybe you've heard of him, his name's Laird Hamilton, and his wife, Gabby Reese, and they have an entire line of supplements with all the finest ingredients. And we got to talking, turns out they have the perfect functional mushroom supplement. It's actually called Performance Mushrooms. And this has everything. It's USDA organic. It's got chaga, cordyceps, lion's mane, maitake. This stuff is amazing for energy balance, for cognition. Look, just being honest, see a lot of people taking care of their bodies. I do not see a lot of people taking care of their brain. This is the product, guys. And so we got to talking, and our values seemed very aligned. We're both into the functional mushrooms, and after a lot of back and forth, I am now a shareholder in the company. I have a small amount of ownership, and I'm just really proud to be repping and be a part of the company that's making the best functional mushroom supplement on the planet. You can get this stuff at lairdsuperfoods.com. You can use the promo code SRS. That'll get you 20% off these performance mushrooms or anything in the store. They got a ton of good stuff. Once again, that's lairdsuperfoods.com. Use the promo code SRS. That gets you 20% off. You guys are going to love this stuff. I guarantee it. All right, Erik, we're back from the break, and we had a lot of mini conversations there. Something that I want to talk to you about is government agency overreach. And we kind of talked about governors aligning, people aligning. I think there's a lot of really good ideas out there, and I don't think that they are being talked about on mass scale because I think everybody's worried that somebody's listening to their phone. Yeah. And which we'll get into one of the solutions to that, but I just want to pick your brain about.
Well, the first time we talked, about 2 years ago now, I mentioned the Chevron deference, right? The Chevron case and how it unleashed the federal bureaucratic state. Because in 1984, there was a Supreme Court case, Natural Resources Defense Council versus Chevron. And there, the Supreme Court actually just basically punted and gave the regulatory authority to the EPA and gave them, basically by judicial decree, the means to write law. And so the court gave them an inch, and they've taken miles since then, like 70 to 80,000 pages of new regulations, which has the force of law every year since then. That's one of the reasons we have a runaway regulatory state. But this last spring, the Supreme Court nixed it, God bless these fishermen. I think there was fishermen in Massachusetts that were sick because some fishery regulator was making them pay $700 a day for a fishery bureaucrat to ride along on their fishing boat and to provide accommodation for them. And those guys said, enough of this. When we're talking about put down the remote control for the TV, push back, fight back, these guys actually fought that case, funded it all the way to the Supreme Court, and they won. And now that is going to unleash the private sector and patriots to be able to push back on overreaching federal regulations everywhere. So as a citizen and a person that believes in very limited government, this is a huge step forward. But what the federal government has done, particularly after 9/11, is they've really gotten, they've engorged on data collection. After 9/11 hits, basically advertising firms came forward with some user data trying to find attributes similar to the 9/11 hijackers, to find other needles in a stack of needles. And they did that, and the federal government got used to it, and they really started put out the demand signal for more and more of that consumer advertising type data. And then you hit the convergence of smartphones coming out in 2009, 10, 11, when Google and Apple put software developer kits for each of the apps that are going to go on their phones, either on an Apple phone or on an Android running Google mobile services. That software development kit, in exchange for that app going on the free app going on the device, is enabled to collect and export all of that customer data. Where you go, what you buy, who you call, what you browse. Turns on the microphone, the camera, the GPS. Because all those free apps, they're not doing it because they like you. They're doing it because they're harvesting your data. You become the product. And so that, over the last few years, the federal agencies were getting somewhat, not beat up, that's too strong of a term, criticized by Congress for buying all of this consumer data that we have willingly given, right? When you buy an Apple or a Android type phone, and you scroll through that user agreement that nobody actually reads, they say basically, yeah, we are collecting and exporting your data. That's what we're doing. Because of that, we've consented to it. This entire industry, it's called surveillance capitalism. There's a fantastic book written by Byron Tao called The Means of Control. And it is shocking of how this industry was created, how some of the early federal government attempts at collecting this data were actually shut down by privacy worries in Congress, but how basically the Pentagon rebadged it and started collecting more and more and more of this data. But like I said, the federal agencies got sick of being criticized. So what they do in this last FISA, it's not an extension, it was a massive expansion. What they passed is that any federal agent can go to any one of these companies, whether it's app information, data on you from a banking app, travel, a gaming app, WhatsApp, any messaging app, email service, whatever. They can collect all of that data on you with no probable cause and certainly without a warrant. So yeah, it is a massive...
Without a warrant.
Without a warrant.
What kind of information will they be getting? I think there's a lot of people that don't understand what kind of data is being transferred.
Every message. Zuckerberg paid $20 billion for WhatsApp because every message that passes through it, every text, every picture, every call, every voice note, analyzed by their algorithm to sell advertising. They take your data. If you're using WhatsApp, they take that data to figure out which your preferences to sell those preferences to an advertising firm. That's why Google and Apple and the other big 3, big 5 tech firms are some of the largest economies on earth. If you have their combined GDPs, it's one of the largest countries on the planet. It's shocking, and it's And it started after 9/11, and it exploded as smartphones came into being. And that's why it is amazing what people give up willingly and largely out of ignorance. And a lot of people think, well, I don't care. But now in an era of AI, where now machines can start to, groom your preferences. Apple just announced that in their next upgrade coming this fall, that they're going to actually put ChatGPT on every iPhone to collect and analyze all the data of yours that's flowing through an iPhone if you're using it. It is shocking what big tech thinks they can do to get away with. And look, some people are sheep and they want to live like sheep and be treated like sheep. And not everyone is a sheep.
Well, you're so concerned about it, you co-founded Unplugged.
Yeah, I having been having seen the abuses of law enforcement and a politicized government organs, and especially after the 2020 election, seeing them cancel certain voices, throwing people off of app stores or whatever for being an election denier or questioning COVID or all this nonsense. I said, we got to have our own phone independent of the Google and Apple universe that they can't cancel. And because we had a team together already that had done a lot of offense and defensive cyber around phones, including building a completely separate operating system for a secure phone and even one that controls pacemakers, we did it. And we got Unplugged to market. You've talked about it with your customers. We hope you're using your phone.
Got it right here.
Right on.
We got the whole team these. We set up the whole Masood interview in Vienna.
Good.
With these, and Gabe Masood one is, if you watched it, you know.
I did.
But I am curious, who helped you develop this?
Tech team, and our CEO is a guy named Ryan Patterson, and he is a ex-Marine DARPA guy. Built a company that does most of the communications into denied areas for the USG. And our CTO is actually the guy that developed Pegasus.
Are you shitting me?
Yeah.
He developed Pegasus?
He developed Pegasus. He's an Israeli guy. But
that scares the shit out of me. Do you want to talk about Pegasus?
But he developed Pegasus as a way for a company, for a phone company to do service. If you have a problem with your phone, they send you a text. You click on the text. They can take over your phone, fix it remotely, and then leave. When the company traded hands, he left. When it became offensive, he left, and he built it's called the Intact phone, which is a highly secure government phone. And then he left and built a phone that controls most of the world's pacemakers. So you're not just having to deal with intelligence and government related stuff, but literally controlling a healthcare device that goes in someone's body. Because like when Cheney was vice president, the main Secret Service concern then was someone hacking his pacemaker, because you can't have a hackable pacemaker. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So yes, fair question. From we've done all the third-party penetration testing. Is there backdoors? All the rest. We put out huge bounties at the DEF CON Hacker Conference to say, this is our messenger, this is our operating system. If you can hack it, there's Bitcoin wallets in these places. If you can hack it, great.
Nobody's hacked it.
Still got the Bitcoin. And it's a lot more valuable now, too.
Well, that's good to hear. What are some of I know some of the features, and I just told you I spent yesterday at the Sheriff's Department, and some of the tech they have, it's been a minute since, it's been about 10 years since I've been with the agency, and the tech that the local Sheriff's Department has now crushes what I was involved in and what I had access to.
Right.
And
so whether it's Stingray stuff, the ad IDs, all this stuff, it's all based on the exhaust given off by your Google or Android type phone, right? What even the Heritage Foundation running checks on the ad IDs. So each Google or Apple phone has a 32-digit advertising ID. It's a code. Someone could call it the mark of the beast that follows that device around everywhere. And that's how the tech companies track where that device goes to figure out proximity for advertising, sales, and who you're interacting with in your schedule. The average kid in America, by the time they reach the age of 13, has had 72 million data points collected on them by big tech.
Wow.
Using that advertising ID.
Wow.
So again, we did Unplugged as a way for people to still communicate in the world, but not be giving off all their digital data to big tech, to people that really don't like them. That, so you can use pretty much all the same apps that you're used to, but they're not providing you the customized experience because it's not sending all of your data out every night. We did a side-by-side test between our phone and Google and Apple's. And the Google and Apple phones seem to wake up between 2 and 3 at night, and they have this huge, like a 50 megabyte data dump that's sent out from the phone every night. Basically, that phoning home, sending off your preferences, everything you've done that day. Ours doesn't.
Wow. Wow.
The in the book, The Means of Control, it talks about there was a DHS agent interviewed about using some of this early ad tech stuff. And he demoed it and he tested it on himself. And sure enough, from the ad ID alone, he could confirm which side of the bed he was sleeping on in his house. So again, some people are fine being sheep. We are for the non-sheep.
I'm a non-sheep. But what are some of the other features on the phone? I know it has the kill switch.
We have a kill switch which physically separates the electronics from the battery. Because if you try to shut off your existing phone, it doesn't actually shut off. It's still listening. It's still pinging towers and still pinging Wi-Fi, building a digital breadcrumb trail. We have a secure messenger with a dump feature. With if someone tries to take your phone and force you to unlock it, you can unlock it with called the clear pin data code, and it wipes it and it will brick the phone. So again, the phone is for free people that want to be secure in their First and Fourth Amendment rights, the right to free speech, and your Fourth Amendment right to be free of illegal searches. Because what this FISA expansion is I cannot imagine it stands up constitutionally because it is so beyond the pale of anything that's legal. Put it this way, the Founding Fathers went to war over taxes on land transfer stamps, the Stamp Act. Where basically with that FISA expansion that even some Republicans voted for. Terrible. It literally allows government into every aspect of your digital life with no warrant and with no probable cause, just because they don't like Shawn Ryan.
I know they don't like me, but
join the club.
Do you think you guys will develop some type of a computer as well?
Yeah, we've talked about a tablet and then a laptop as well. Listen, we woke up 3 years ago and decided to take on 2 multi-trillion-dollar companies. Crawl, walk, run, brother. We're getting there.
Yeah. I'm just excited.
Listen, our messenger also works in a browser, so you can use it as to replace email because it's not sending emails, but we can send secure messages that you can burn that you can send with an expiry time.
I want to talk to you about Taiwan. What do you have to say about what's going on over there? The CCP desperately wants it back. They've been like a boa constrictor, moving closer and closer. And the interesting thing, the sad thing is, while everyone's been focused on Taiwan itself, they have been moving heavily diplomatically and with a lot of black bag diplomacy, cash, into a lot of islands that World War II history fans will recognize, like the Solomons, Guadalcanal. Those islands, they have been setting up bases, diplomatic relations, doing all kinds of infrastructure investments
choking off and basically building significant capacity outside the first and second chain of islands. So the islands that Marines and Army fought for to recapture from the Japanese Empire are now basically being, because the U.S. is asleep at the switch, in the same way that the Obama administration was asleep at the switch when the Chinese moved into the South China Sea and built all kinds of islands out of stuff that was reefs, basically dredging, build an island, and the Chinese would say, well, this is not anything military. It's really just a search and rescue and a weather station. Bullshit. It's in my travels in China, I actually met the former CEO of China Harbor and Dredge. I said this in a previous interview. They had no plans to do that, but they found the Obama administration to be so vapid, they just went for it and built these islands. Now, diplomatically, China is moving into these islands, tiny islands with maybe 50,000 people as citizens, but they have millions of square miles of ocean space, and the U.S. is asleep at the switch, and so we're getting displaced. So it's elections have consequences, man, and there's just not a lot of good things happening on the Asia front. And at the same time, the Taiwanese still believe Uncle Sugar is going to bail them out, and they're not very focused on building and preparing and readiness. And U.S. military leadership keeps defaulting towards the same big, very expensive weapon systems. And I think the Ukraine war is showing that big and exotic weapon systems are subject to being destroyed and certainly being targeted. There's so much, the P for plenty volume that China can throw at Taiwan or at U.S. Navy ships is very, very dangerous.
Interesting.
And I thought still possible they can go this fall and take it militarily, but now seeing what they're doing diplomatically, they're able to choke off much of this, not just the South China Sea, but even islands between there and Australia diplomatically, and get their bases established the same way.
What do you think Australia thinks of all this? How concerned are they?
They're quite concerned, but they've had runaway immigration for a long time. They have a huge Chinese population, which is probably not as averse to China as Australian citizens are. And again, they're also misled. They're now buying very expensive nuclear submarines from the United States when they could buy 8 times as many right now that are diesel electric that would be more potent, more capable, and harder for the CCP to track and locate and defeat. So again, what you're seeing in Ukraine, a massive step change in warfare. An FPV drone carrying a charge this size that you can 3D print next to the battlefield, fill it with explosives, with a $700 FPV racing drone with a different software on it. With that charge, that you can fly out to 10, 20, 30 kilometers and drive it into a tank, an artillery piece, a command bunker, into a trench. It's democratized force. It's democratized precision strike, literally down to one man. So you can carry 6 of those drones in your backpack, patrol up, and go to work. I think, well, I know the U.S. military is not paying attention to it, certainly not learning the lessons from it, and our assumptions of all of our stuff, right? Because we've spent hundreds of billions, trillions of dollars on defense stuff, and it's all very subject to being obsolesced by that level of speed and precision and ability to deliver very dangerous kinetic strikes.
How do you defend against that?
I think there's a window right now of 2 or 3 years where advantage has gone to the offense, right? The guy flying the pilots, something as simple as nets, big cargo nets around your stuff, stops that. Stops the small drone. Hard kill solutions will be developed. Hard kill, like air bursting rounds, drones that kill other drones. But again, economics is a huge factor in warfare, and trying to be affordable is not something the U.S. has ever been very good at.
Do you have any insight on some of these energy weapons that are being developed?
Yes, there's certainly a lot being spent across the spectrum, but we both know one of the things that is prevalent on the battlefield is smoke and dust. Lasers don't do so well in smoke and dust. Lasers don't do so well in fog and rainy days and low cloudy days. What does work every time is an air bursting round.
I've got to send you this company that I found online. I think it's called Epirus. Have you heard of it?
Nope.
It looks like an old rocket launcher
Okay.
that attaches to that they just tow behind a truck. And these things are taking out 20, 30 drones at a time. And it's to my understanding that they can actually pick what happens. They can take control of the drones or helicopters or whatever. They can fry it. They all drop at the same time. There's no ammunition.
It's a directed energy weapon then.
It is. It's basically, the way I understand it is it is a directed EMP.
Okay. Well,
I got to send you this.
good. Please.
I will.
I probably need to park one of those around outdoor presidential events.
Might be a good idea, but probably won't happen. I know they're deploying them to Ukraine. I think they may have sent a couple to Israel. I'm not sure, but speaking,
Look, even Israel, for as much they've spent billions on high altitude intercept and Iron Dome to shoot down incoming rockets, 50% of the loitering munitions that are launched from the north, from Hezbollah controlled areas, are getting through.
I did not realize that.
It's a huge problem, and it's dinging them hard.
Wow.
So they built this magnificent high fence, but the very low level kind of nap of the earth loitering munition is causing real problems.
Interesting.
So it's an example of it's very dangerous to assume.
Speaking of Israel, how many times have you been over there since October 7th?
I was there a couple times in November, December, because I was trying to get them. There's one thing I understand is military bureaucracies, and the IDF has a lot of brave but stubborn people. And I knew they'd have a problem with the tunnels, and I didn't think they'd have a very good idea of the technology that's grown in directional horizontal drilling. And so I brought them a solution, because I think the reason they're having so much problems is they literally walked into the fight that Hamas wanted to have. Hamas wants to maximize civilian casualties and to draw them into urban combat. And so the amount of bombing that the Israelis have done in and around civilians, whatever the number is, Hamas says it's this number, IDF says it's this number, it's really, really giving them a black eye in the international media. And I was trying to prevent that and prevent civilians from getting killed in the crossfire of all this bombing by bringing the best of Texas in horizontal drilling to flood the tunnels, and had, even 12,000 horsepower turbine engines driving pumps moving 60,000 gallons a minute. So you're filling an Olympic swimming pool in a few seconds. To be able to drill horizontally, and once you hit tunnels, to just flood it. So it would have done three things. Flooded all their underground arms caches, would have prevented them using tunnels for maneuver, and three, some say, well, it would have drowned the hostages. No, it would have forced them to move the hostages, because they don't want dead hostages. Dead hostages are worth nothing to Hamas. They'd have to move them. It would at least taken away the underground fight, because there was no civilians, maybe hostages, but there were no civilians in those tunnels. And they didn't go with that plan, largely because the Pentagon gave them pressure not to. I was shocked at how subjugated even the IDF was to the Biden Pentagon. And so it's ugly. Hamas is still not defeated. They're now, 9 months past October 7, and it's still not resolved. It's too bad.
It seems to be growing.
Yes. Well, and with what the Houthis are doing, shutting off the Red Sea, Egypt is losing $800 million a month, okay, in toll fees. The Arab street in Egypt is extremely now hostile to Israel. Even the Christians in Egypt hostile to Israel because of the video, right? The nonstop Al Jazeera pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas propaganda. And the Israelis blundered into it. It was stupid. It was stupid. Hamas would not have been expecting to turn Gaza into a duck impoundment. And I'm doing that, and I advocated that to protect civilians from the inevitability of combat, not to hurt them. If it's one thing I understand is moving water. Having built Blackwater on 7,000 acres of land as flat as your kitchen table, we had to move a lot of water.
Yeah, I bet. Why are we behind Israel?
There's been a historic long-term alliance as a democracy in the Middle East. And
is this a one-sided alliance?
There's a lot of tech that comes out of Israel that the U.S. benefits from. Pretty good intel, I would say as well. But I would say it's not a look. What alliance does America have that's actually equal? NATO is not an alliance. NATO is a protectorate. When Trump took over, 5 of 28 countries were actually paying the 2% of their GDPs for defense. Now it's up to 11, and now it's up to 11 out of 28, but still not. I mean, Germany, third largest economy in the world, they're not anywhere close to paying 2% of their defense yet. They're just not taking it seriously. Norway, with a $1 trillion sovereign wealth fund, it's right on a website. You can see it ticking up in value. They spend like 1.2%. Why are we defending them? No. That's, again, I wrote a big article on neocon foreign policy failure. I'm all in favor of defending allies, but not protectorates. Our tax dollars and our sons do not need to protect protectorates.
That's kind of what I'm getting at, and I'm not anti-Israel. I just want to know, I'm just getting tired of us funding everybody's wars.
Power the purse, cut it off. We need a thorough house cleaning of the Pentagon and the really bad habits, a thorough recompetitiveness of American defense industry. We used to have 100 major defense contractors. We're down to 5 now. And they really do behave like a cartel. So fine, break up that cartel. Teddy Roosevelt, one of the greatest things he did was trust busting, was busting up the huge cartelized industries in America. Defense is one of those. Insurance is one of those. Banking, that's a whole nother story. But we spend way too much on defense because of really bad, really stupid procurement policies driven by Congress that reward really bad behavior from these very bloated customers that have really started to look exactly like the federal government customer. That's probably why big government hated Blackwater so much, is because I would say to our people all the time, we never want to look like, act like, at the speed of our customers, ever.
You keep talking about power of the purse, and we're wrapping up this interview. I want it to be a quick, fast-paced interview, but I mean, what can people do?
They should go to their congressman's town hall meetings and get in their face about spending less, about cutting defense, about cutting their spending on everything. Cut money. Politicians will respond to people angry in their face at those town hall meetings. They will. Get angry about it. Heritage Foundation, those kind of organizations have lots of good material on reducing the size of government. Read up on that stuff and get in your congressman's face. Whether they're Republican or Democrat, they will understand angry voters because they're all afraid. They just want to be reelected.
I'm just curious on your opinion. What percentage of the United States do you think is going to act? And the reason I'm asking, hear me out, I brought up the Masood interview earlier. We're sending $87 million a week to a terrorist organization. So we went to Vienna. We interviewed Masood to get some insight into. We made a petition for people to sign. We're going to get it to Representative McCall out of Texas, chairman of the
House Foreign Affairs Committee.
Yes. At the time, 650,000 people had watched that interview, double that on audio. That's 1.2, 1.3 million, plus all of the clips, reels, posts, and shit that we did across all the platforms. We're probably talking about 5 to 6 million views of people who've seen that interview, who've seen, hey, this is how much money we're spending on funding terrorist organizations, and you and I are paying for it. We got 66,000 signatures out of 6 million people watching the content. So then I did a small post, basically, expressing my concern and saying this is why nothing ever changes in this fucking country, because you're too lazy to get off your ass and sign a fucking petition. Now, we just had a discussion. Now that's up to 200 and something thousand, and thanks to some people that got behind me, like our friend Tucker Carlson, who reposted the tweet. But and there is an argument. Some people are saying, what is a petition going to do? That's not going to do anything. Well, I think it is going to do something, because it's 200 and something thousand people who are basically calling McCall out to bring Masood into.
The most important, to get 100 or 200,000 voters in his district educated and pissed off on that, to say, hey, this is enough of this, cut it off. I think there's cynicism of how imperial Washington has become and unresponsive. If you think we haven't added, and I hate to say this, so there's 435 congressmen. And it used to be, we haven't changed that number in almost 110 years. Because it used to be, and that was when the country was a third or less the size. So you had fewer people per congressional district, so you could get in the face and be much more, and make that member much more responsive. But now, for this, it's about 5 to 600,000 people per congressional district. They just have to stitch together a few inane constituencies and tell the rest of them to pound sand. One of the reforms that should probably be considered, on top of obviously spending reforms, is to increase the number of congressmen. I hate to say that, because that would be more politicians, but maybe grow the number of politicians, keep the salary pool the same, so they just get paid less staff, and make them much more responsive to their constituents at home. Because the House is supposed to be responsive every 2 years. The Senate is supposed to be the more steady, deliberative body, but elected by the state legislatures. That's, if we get back to those things that the founders intended, that's some of the structural problems that have let us go this far off track. But again, if you're pissed off with your congressman, go to a town hall meeting, get in their face.
Can you please help me understand how more congressmen is going to help?
Because it'd be more responsive to, because if we went to half the number of congressmen, so now you're at a couple million people, it's easier. The more direct elected that member is, the more responsive they are to the mood of the country at the time. Just like local elections can be, when people get pissed off locally, they turn out and vote for their mayor, because it's going to affect the stop signs, or whether the streets are clean, or their local police.
What do you think it's going to take to get more Americans involved in doing that?
They have to get past Affluenza, right? Things are so good. They're so comfortable, so much wealth in America, that it's easy, right? We have an obesity epidemic, right? 70+% of people are seriously overweight. Enough. I travel a lot. It is embarrassing to see how obese Americans are. Obviously, Americans are walking around in Europe or Asia or South America. Like, come on, people, put the sugar down. Enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get off the affluenza.
Yeah. I want to end this on a positive note. What?
It's been, yes, easy.
Good. Go.
It's always been much worse. It's always been, we've gone through, America's been far worse off before. Okay. Think about American Civil War. 600,000 people dead. Even after World War I, there was millions of people died of Spanish flu, actual flu that killed lots of people, killed them, not the nonsense that was COVID. The Great Depression, serious economic hardships, actual starvation in parts of America. So yeah, we've got some issues now, but it's fixable.
Have we been up against anything like this before?
Well, this is a fundamental defining issue of how we view ourselves as citizens in a government. We talked about before, the socialist or the communist paradigm is really about control and subjecting yourself to a government elite, a party elite, determining what is best for your life, versus the paradigm of freedom, of individual liberty and choice, for that you make those changes to organize your life in the way that you want to choose. And that clash has been ongoing for millennia. And I would always choose the side of freedom.
Thank you for sharing that. Last question. If Trump gets elected, do you have a spot in his administration?
I hope not. I would love to serve, but there's lots of ways to serve. Maybe not with a full-time government job.
Fair enough.
Let me end with this. Well, let me end with a motivating story. My favorite story from the American Revolution. Samuel Whitmore. He was 78 years old in April of 1775. He's a military veteran of the French and Indian Wars. And he hears the British soldiers marching by to go attack his buddies, the Patriots, at Lexington and Concord. Well, Samuel Whitmore, at 78 years old, goes and guns himself up, loads his two pistols and his musket, and he goes out and he single-handedly attacks the British marching by. He kills 3 British soldiers. He draws his sword, which doesn't need reloading, and he attacks. The British overwhelm him. They shoot him in the face. They bayonet him 6 times. When the Patriots found him an hour later, he was trying to reload. He lived for 18 more years.
Wow.
So it's a great example. However old you are never too old to be out of the fight.
Nice. Well, Erik, once again, thank you for coming. And
thanks for all you're doing, Shawn. Keep doing it.
I will.
All right,
I will.
buddy.
Appreciate it. No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.